few of the goals. I know it's really a Herculean task for any report to cover the 17 goals, as well as 169 targets. What we did is in line with what Adam has said in terms of focusing on the high-level political forum theme, to make sure that at least there's in harmony with the global trend. I just have a few things on the report because it's straight to the point. Essentially, what I want to do is, if you look at the theme, is towards a kind of transformed and resilient economy. And that's the kind of thing we are trying to continent. That's the main thing is for us to really use the SDG as an anchor of economic transformation. SDG as the anchor of industrialization, and SDG as the anchor of promoting resilient communities and societies. The reason why we focus on this is because we know once you look at all the SDGs, I, for instance, say we need to partner more with the private sector because all the SDGs present business development solutions. And like I've been talking to a number of private sectors within and outside Africa, we need to just take one SDG, not even target, not even the goal, go target by target. They present opportunities for business investment. And I think that's one thing we have to think about. The public sector have to know, they have to realize that the power of development does not rest on any stakeholder. It has to be a kind of combined effort of the various stakeholders, the private sector, the civil society organization, the academia, and development partner, as well as the public sector driving the coordination aspect of it. And what I just want to reflect on especially is one of the recent studies, that responsibility, meaning climate change should be addressing climate change is beyond the capacity of African countries. It should be based on what you call, it should be seen as global public good. Global public good in the sense that you pay more for it on the basis of what you have contributed to factor driving climate change. And that's what the UN called the common but differentiated responsibilities. That the world powers have to bear more responsibility than low-income countries and developing countries based on their contribution to climate change. And I think this is one of the issues I'm passing to our colleagues, the civil society organization, public government officials, as well as private sector, that we need to pass across. And I see this. I will just say something again in one of the goals so that I'll allow other colleagues to talk about this. It's about renewable energy. If you look at something, the reason why I'm emphasizing this is that it's renewable energy that can help us meet the challenge of this situation whereby more than 60% of the population are not connected to national grids in Africa. And it's a thing you can use to even take to a community or a hamlet with one or two communities. It doesn't need to be connected to national grid to have access to clean energy. And I think this is one of the areas African government, African stakeholders, even international development partners could really invest to make sure we use this to make life more bearable in rural areas and at the same time ensure that no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. It used to be that prices...
My time to...
Excellent.
colleagues.
Okay, so we turn over to Dr. Chidozie Emenuga from AfDB.
Thank you, Madam. During the presentation, Dr. Adams made a lot of recommendations at the conclusion of the recommendations of the report as to what should be done. And Dr. Shola also concluded by saying that we need to do something. And my first message is that African Development Bank is already doing something. When you look at all the 4 SDGs we're discussing today, of course, the problems all existed. That was why they qualified to be one of the SDGs in those 4 areas. Even though the presentation have been working towards attaining the goals. At the African Development Bank, for instance, attaining these goals are one of our core objectives, and our lending programs, our actions and activities are all geared towards realizing these goals. For instance, many of you here must have heard of African Development Bank talking about High Five. In other words, 5 areas we have put forward up front to lead the development challenge. And within all these areas, we've been committing substantial resources to realize these goals. And this report is reassuring to us that our actions so far have not been in vain, they have been productive, and if anything, we're going to reinforce them. For example, when you look in the area of problem of water, problem of urban areas, and the associated issue of quality of life in Africa. And the African Development Bank has focused strongly, both in terms of financing African countries to improve production, and also advising and supporting African countries to take all necessary measures to ensure that we contain food losses. In 2017, over $1.75 billion was invested just in this aspect of development. So to say, the recommendations you see in the report, we are glad to see that these are areas where we have initiated actions, and what the bank is going to do is to reinforce the activities in these areas. One comment I need to make again before, and then as we address the knowledge gap, we follow it up with all necessary actions to build the capacity of Africans and players in Africa to really realize the development goals in all these areas. And of course, coming to this conference is an opportunity for me. Presently, I belong to that African Development Institute to discuss and relate with some of you who have think tanks, NGOs, and other institutions, regional integration bodies, that have one role or the other to go of SDG.